Did you know you can have special interactions with Major Raikov by wearing a disguise? Using the Raiden mask, Raikov will stop for a few seconds and say this.
How beautiful.
While wearing the scientist outfit without any mask will cause him to inspect the player in his signature way. In fact, unlike regular soldiers, Raikov doesn't get distracted by magazines with women on them since they're not his type. Plus, if you give him spoiled food, it'll make him go to the toilet, which also has a few unique interactions. Banging on the door will force him to come out, which is pretty cool, and even sneaking into the toilet will cause him to say this.
I have a strange feeling someone's watching.
And once you steal his suit, soldiers will salute you as if you're the major and even thank you for punching them as well.
Keep up the fine work, sir.
But interrogating Raikov will reveal a secret weakness about Volgin you can use in the boss fight. This is just one of many amazing secrets in MGS3 that we're gonna show so you can try out in both the original and hopefully the remake MGS Delta. There's a few interesting interactions you can have with regular guards. Shooting each of their limbs will make it very hard for them to walk around and fire at you. And just like how Snake has to manually heal up to recover from external damage, they'll also try to bandage their wounds, which will recover their movement. You can also throw live snakes at soldiers, which will cause them to attack each other in this unique animation. But if it's a venomous creature like tarantulas, scorpions, or snakes, it'll also poison the enemy and eventually take them down, which is a nice touch. And keep in mind that any environmental effects that damages Snake can also damage or even unalive the enemy. But watch out, since drowning or other somewhat passive causes of death may count as a lethal kill. The only way to fully achieve 100% camouflage without the stealth camo device is by using the moss fatigue in a forest area, which achieves a 95% rating. Slapping on a face paint will then bump it up to 100. But this isn't the only special effect of this skin. You can photosynthesize by standing in sunlight, which will recover your health and stamina at a very slow rate, just like the end. Other boss fatigues also have unique effects, like the spirit camo from the Sorrow, which allows you to drain stamina from choking enemies, as well as completely nullifying the sounds of the player's footsteps. The Hornet Stripe camo allows Snake to command hornets to attack enemies after shooting down their nests, and stops spiders, leeches, and hornets from attacking Snake. The Cold War skin stops enemies from shooting the player when facing the Soviet flag, but they'll open fire again when looking at the side of the American flag. The Animal Fatigue steadies the player's hands while aiming even when stamina is low. The Spider Fatigue has a high camo index for most surfaces but severely drains stamina. The Fire Fatigue reduces damage from explosions and fire by 50%. The Snake camo from the boss's fight, to my knowledge, doesn't have any special abilities other than a higher camo index when crawling. To unlock the boss specific skins, you have to take them down non-lethally, which can be a bit difficult. But there are a few cool tricks to try out. Starting with Ocelot, there's beehives hanging above him that you can shoot down as a small distraction. And as a cool side note, spinning a revolver at Ocelot will cause him to do the same as well. This will also occasionally activate a high noon showdown, which is so cool. You can choose to respect this by trying to actually shoot at the same time, or just get an easy shot on him as he approaches. Plus, using the fake death peel in any boss fight will make them think you're dead, which gives a nice opening. Doing this in the Fizz boss fight allows you to throw a stun grenade, which briefly turns all lethal damage into non-lethal for some reason, making this one of the easiest wins. Plus, after lowering the Fizz stamina bar to around half, throwing spoiled or poisonous food on the ground will make him run down and eat it. Keep doing this to make him throw up, which depletes his stamina. Also, the Sorrow's boss fight length depends on how many people you killed throughout your playthrough. But regardless, drowning yourself or any other means of unaliving Snake will instantly end the boss fight. And just as Raikov hinted before, throwing the luminescent mushrooms on the floor in Volgin's boss fight will redirect the stream of electricity. So keep this in your inventory before the fight. And finally, you can actually counter the boss's CQC by pressing the melee button when you hear the pre-attack swoosh sound. This allows you to ground slam the boss afterwards and shoot her on the ground. By far, the boss fight with the most hidden details is the end. When saving the game, Paramedic will give you a warning about doing so.
You might not want to.
Why wouldn't I? Well, it just feels like something bad could happen.
If you turn off the game for a few days after saving, loading back in will show a special cutscene where the end finds Snake asleep and takes him back to the lab as a prisoner. This forces you to escape and have to run all the way back to the boss area, so watch out. But if you wait a week or more to reload the game, the end will die of old age, making this one of the easiest boss battles. Plus, capturing the end's parrot during the fight, then releasing it will cause the parrot to fly back to the end, which you can follow to find his location. But way before the actual boss fight in Ponizonia South, right at the end of the map leading to the warehouse, you can turn left into Ponizonia West, which will have a small shed with the SVD sniper. Continuing to Ponizonia Warehouse, you'll briefly see the end sitting on a wheelchair. Using the sniper, you can actually unalive him this early on in the game. Doing this will cause the Ocelot unit to appear in his boss battle area instead. And finally, when versing the end on lower difficulties, you can enter this special Konami code in the survival viewer of the map, which reveals the end's location. Speaking of which, by interrogating enemies, they'll reveal codec frequencies that allow you to call off alerts and searches, or even request in an airstrike, which is so cool.
This is Patrol, requesting fire support. Over.
Understood, Patrol. Commencing fire support.
You have to interrogate the guards first to actually use the frequencies, and it can only be used one time.
As per standard operating procedure, this frequency will no longer be used. Out.
Each area also uses different frequencies for both actions respectively, so make sure to always interrogate guards for the intel. Other codec frequencies I'm showing now help you unlock doors. The Sorrow holds up the prison cell frequency code in the torture cutscene, which makes escaping so much easier. And you can find the 4 locked doors frequencies in Grozny Grad's weapons lab by interrogating the guards. But keep in mind that these codes change depending on the game's difficulty. This also goes for the healing frequencies that play soothing music, which completely replenishes your stamina. A list with all the frequencies mentioned is in the description. Some areas have interactable items that affect the gameplay in the future. For example, in Bolshaya Pass base, you'll see a helicopter parked on the ground. This is the same one that appears later on in Krasnogoye mountainside. Destroying the helicopter earlier in Bolshaya will make sneaking around the mountainside easier, as it'll instead be replaced with guards on floating platforms. Another really important feature to keep in mind is destroying weapons and food storages, which reduces guards' assault rifle magazines to just one and makes them really hungry and easier to knock out respectively. Doing this will affect all the guards in the related areas, but it's more useful in places like Grozny Grad where you need to backtrack. In fact, when you first arrive in Grozny Grad, be sure to not pick up this cardboard box in the southeast zone. Instead, destroy the weapon stash in the northwest zone of the map, and more importantly, the food stash in the northeast zone, since it'll make all the guards so weak that rolling into them or hitting them just once will be enough to knock them out. After the torture scene, then go pick up the box, which will make escaping the area with no items so much easier. Just make sure to also remove the tracker Ocelot planted on Snake in the torture room before leaving the sewers, or else the Ocelot unit will track you down to the waterfall. Also, by killing the maintenance crew of the Shagohard in the hangar, it'll reduce its health later on in the boss fight, which is pretty cool. There's a few hidden attacks and movement buffs Snake can perform in the cardboard box. Running directly into the enemy will automatically unequip the box, allowing you to easily perform the ground slam attack or any other means to knock them out. The cardboard box is also immune to flames on the ground, making it much easier for you to navigate during the Fury's boss fight. And for some reason, it also allows you to keep your movement speed while going up hills, which is useful during the Ends fight. Plus, jumping into this truck in the northwest area of Grozny Grad with Box A will cause you to be delivered to the storage room of the weapons lab, while using Box B will take you to the hangar of the Shagohard, dropping you off right next to some other similar looking boxes, which is pretty cool. While grappling guards, you can use the handkerchief to put them to sleep. Waving it back and forth in their face also works just fine. In fact, waving around the handkerchief too much will also cause Snake to fall asleep as well. Other cool CQC actions include being able to aim and shoot while holding a guard hostage. Plus, if you're hanging off a ledge, you can still pull out a gun and shoot at enemies, which is rarely ever used, but now you know. Guns still fire underwater and even muffles the sound without suppressors, which helps a lot with sneaking. And by throwing a stun grenade in water, it's an easy way to get a lot of food for Snake, especially in Ponizonia South. There's a hidden mini-game called Snake vs. Monkey exclusive to the PS2 version of the game, where Snake has to capture a bunch of monkeys from the Ape Escape series. Shout out to Kouteshi for letting me use their footage. This was ultimately removed from later HD versions of the game since they were available on other consoles while Ape Escape was a PlayStation exclusive. Another interesting PS2 exclusive feature is found when saving the game in the prison cell. Doing so will cause Paramedic to talk about a vampire movie involving Dracula. Quitting and reloading back in the game will cause the player to take control of a character named Guy Savage. Shout out to Trutmandias for letting me use their footage. This turns the game into a small hack and slash level where you have to fight off waves of monsters. Eventually, your character will transform into a semi-werewolf-like state and get stronger. After 10 minutes or so, Snake will wake up from this bad dream and have unique conversations with the cast over the codec.
I had the most amazing dream thanks to you.
Ah, you didn't really dream about Drac.
Don't say it. The last thing I need is a double feature.
This was apparently a tech demo of a game from Konami that was never finished, and for whatever reason was removed from all non-PS2 versions of the game. Hopefully both of these make a return in Delta. There's 3 ways to escape the prison cell. One I already mentioned earlier is that code that can also be found on the back of the guard Johnny's family photo, which is triggered by throwing back the food he gives you a few times. Plus, later on in the exact same cutscene, he also gives back Snake's sig pack, which you can use to put him to sleep before escaping. The second way is to use the fake death pill, which will cause Johnny to check on you in the cell. The fake death pill was shot into Snake's leg by the boss, so you have to use the fork to take it out. And the final way is to simply spin Snake around in the viewer menu a few times. This will cause him to throw up, which will also make Johnny open the cell to see what's wrong. But doing this will lower your stamina. Speaking of which, as shown in George Salonikh's video, by going to Chornish Prud and wearing the naked fatigue, waiting long enough in the rain next to this trap will cause Snake to catch a cold. Not only will this continually decrease your stamina, but Snake will occasionally do a loud sneeze which guards can hear. It also causes your controller to shake violently until you cure it, which can be done with some simple cold medicine. On both occasions, it took me around 30 minutes of waiting since catching a cold is very rare. Paramedic says swimming in water or swamps can also trigger it, but this is the easiest way. Another thing that drains stamina is by equipping too many items from your backpack. Although I don't think the weight meter affects Snake's movement speed like in Peace Walker, being heavier does drain your stamina faster, so always unequipped items you're not using. Boss camos aren't the only ones with special effects. The fly camo, for example, smells really bad and repels enemies from using melee attacks against you. The Gakko outfit lets you hear the keratin plushies around the map, and the sneaking suit reduces all stamina and damage by half thanks to its synthetic muscle fibers. Plus, the crocodile hat also makes it impossible to be detected by guards underwater. Also, in re-releases of the game, pressing right on the camo menu will open up another tab with skins that were originally added as DLC. Although they don't have any special effects, they are more unique compared to the original skins in the game. So, which one's your favorite? By pressing the R1 button in certain cutscenes, it'll allow you to see Snake's perspective, which can reveal some interesting secrets. Doing so after falling off the bridge will reveal the Sorrow's body near the river. You can also see the boss's ghost with the Sorrow after you finish her boss battle, and even Ocelot appears behind the president at the end of the game. There's a lot more, so keep an eye out for the R1 prompt, and don't forget to try out all these tips in Delta. And for more insane details about Metal Gear Solid, click this video here.